Welcome, weary travelers, to the Crypt of the Unknown, a podcast that discusses the horrific and fantastic across all forms of media. But today, we won't be diving into media, we'll be diving more into a very personal subject. I am Webb the Critical Android, and joining me, the brainchild for this episode, my co-host and friend, Stefan J.D.
Yes, I'm back. It feels like we haven't been here to record in quite some time, so I feel happy to be here, even though the subject matter might not be the most positive thing to talk about.
No, it's not, but at the same time, it's an important thing to discuss, because I feel like there's a lot of people, especially at the time that we're recording this, who are dealing with a lot of powerful negative emotions. And in particular, one that has plagued both of us is depression. And it can be a very tough ongoing battle for people. And you really want to talk about this subject, not just to kind of like get our feelings out there, but also because it's something that really does impact other people's lives. And sometimes knowing what other people go through, how they process and deal, is something that can try to help you in your own journey and struggle with it.
Right. So my idea, and I had this idea way back at the beginning of the podcast, and like Webb said, it's not specifically going to be meant for us to just like talk about our own demons and depression and anxiety and stuff. But later on after this episode, we're going to welcome people on and let them talk about their journeys and experiences. And we have set up a format here where it's going to be 10 questions so that they can understand that this is all we're going to ask them, and they'll feel comfortable coming on. There won't be any surprises. Obviously, if I'm like the first question is, when did you first experience depression? And they say, probably like when I was 16. And then they don't say anything else. I'm obviously going to ask them to elaborate on that. But other than that, they will know what is coming. And the best way I felt like to present this was for us to do it ourselves first, so that we can show that, like these questions aren't going to be tough, and people in the future can, know that we are only doing this because we also have gone through the problems and the just dealing with depression in general. And I know I've talked with Webb about it, like once maybe we've discussed it kind of offhand, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've discussed personal tribulations, like you and I, because we're good friends, and have been for a number of years now. We've talked about things that have happened in our lives that have really brought us down. So we're not unfamiliar with the fact that both of us have had struggles with things, and even though we don't necessarily talk at length about it all the time, when things are down, we both know that, hey, something's up, and we try to either find that balance between reaching out or giving space, whichever was appropriate.
Right. And usually when we talk, we're pretty dapper Dans anyways. We're pretty happy to be in each other's company, and obviously that's why we started a YouTube channel.
Exactly.
And a podcast on top of it. But not only that, but we've shared work that we've done together. Another subject, another day. Anyway, so yeah, just jumping right into it, beginning with the first question on our list here is, when did you first experience depression? And you can go first if you want, Webb.
Yeah, I first really experienced depression. It would have been my final year of college. This was back in around 2002 to 2000. I'm sorry, 2005 to 2006. And as things were nearing the end of college, and realizing that I was going to be leaving the world of academia and going into the real world, a lot of stuff hit me hard. I started questioning my position in the world, whether there was a higher power, whether, death was the end, or whether there was something beyond it. And all that kind of tied into having to realize that you're not surrounded by the security net that is the academic world, where you're a student, you're learning, you're expected to learn and make mistakes, and a lot of that changes after you get out of college, and you're expected to be more of an adult. And I had gone through a lot of stuff in terms of parents divorcing, and what I would later find out to be a very kind of abusive, emotionally abusive relationship with my father, that it wouldn't really come to a head until several years afterwards. But I remember graduating from college, and that's when I first really experienced it. And it would come and go in terms of not even recognizing it was depression at the time until quite a while afterwards. So sometimes you can be depressed and not realize you're depressed until you look back on it. And looking back on it now, I know that the first time I really experienced what I would come to know as depression was right around the end of 2005 into the start of 2006.
Oh, okay. You know what? It happened to me around exactly the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. I was watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force with my friends. Literally, like that anxiety you get in the pit of your chest, and you feel like you're having a heart attack, and you get the shortness of breath and everything. I was literally laughing right when my first anxiety attack ever hit me, and I just stopped mid laugh, and I was like, "What was that?" And I had no idea what was going on. And I went to the bathroom and just had to suffer through it because they don't last long, but they feel like forever, of course. And I experienced that mostly, I think, the reason being is because my parents had gotten a divorce. My dad basically turned into mist, and my mom had become or started her drug addiction. So it was right in the depths of my world falling apart, and I was a teenager. So it just kind of all hit me all at once. And I always find it curious that I was mid laughter the moment that I felt an utter attack of anxiety.
Man.
So yeah, that's the first time I experienced it, and I would try to learn. I don't know about you, Webb, but I would learn different methods to try and calm myself down. I know, early on, I would I think being on my elbows and knees, kind of like a dog, I could breathe better in that position when I was having anxiety attacks.
For me, no real trick to that. My anxiety has caused elements of a syndrome known as vasovagal syncope.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who are not familiar with that it doesn't always stem from, well, it's when the body is being taxed in some sort of way, and it causes what's known as an attack known as vasovagal syncope. And there is I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, but effectively, we'll go with what the Mayo Clinic describes it as. That's probably the best way to put it. It's basically where there's a nerve in your body. It has a lot to do with your blood pressure, your heart rate, all those kind of things, and you can find yourself starting to almost shut down. It's this really weird, scary feeling. And it's hard to describe it unless you're actually going through it. The first time I had it happen to me, I thought I was dying. I literally thought that I was dying when this happened to me. I thought I was just going to die right there at work. It was scary. It was absolutely incredibly scary. But my body started feeling really tingly. It felt like my fingers and my toes were losing connection with my body. I felt lightheaded. I started feeling very confused. Mm-hmm. Started feeling very hot, and things were just really, really weird. It's so hard to describe what it feels like, but effectively, it was. Some people can have this when they see blood, like a panic attack of some kind. But for me, it started my head started getting fuzzy, and I found myself having to lay down on the ground. And I was at work when this happened. I thought to myself, my head feels kind of funny. It feels really hot in here. Why am I wearing this blazer? And so I start taking off the blazer, and it's it's really warm in here. Why am I wearing a tie? And I start taking off my tie. And then it's still really warm in here. I shouldn't be wearing this shirt. And I start unbuttoning my shirt. And this is at work. And next thing I know, I'm lying there, bare-chested on the floor of the hotel that I was working at and think to myself, this is it. I'm going to die on the floor of the hotel.
Yeah.
And then it started getting considerably better over time, and everything turned out okay. It was just the vasovagal syncope attack. But I've only had a few of those before. Other times, it's just the anxiety. There was really not a lot I can do to kind of like get over things like that. It's different when it's kind of like an extreme amount of depression as opposed to anxiety too, because with anxiety, your body is in like a heightened state of alertness to the point where you are putting so much stress on all of your systems. But with depression, you don't feel that as much. You just kind of feel like the sense of, it can be like a sense of overwhelming dread, or just this feeling of supreme tiredness, like you don't have any means of wanting to move or desire to do anything, and even things that seem like they would be fun just present themselves as kind of like this burden to do. And that can be really tough when you're in that kind of a situation, which is so different than like a panic or anxiety attack where your body is just on like this live wire, it feels like.
Mm-hmm. And my grandma used to call it all the time. She would say, "You're dead to the world." That's what you seem like you're like right now. You're dead to the world. Because I ended up going and living with her in a very depressed period at some point. But one of the second question that we ask people on here, or going to in the future, is what did you do then and now to suppress it in any way? And for me, it's pretty simple. When I started out, like I said, I would get on my knees and my elbows, kind of like a dog, and I would just try to breathe calmly. I would close my eyes. I would try to shut down any thoughts I had, because I would just freak out. And with actual depression, because that's kind of more anxiety, the only thing I think that got me through that really was just listening to music, calming things, reading, not being in a big crowd around people, loud noises, stuff like that, just being around negative people. So many things, like little things like that would tune me into a sensation of feeling even more depressed. And I think also like looking at other people and like how they were succeeding in life, or how easy they had it, or their, just anything. They had a car, their parents were together, they could find a good job, whatever it was. At the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself, and it's not as they always, people always say it's not a race. It's not, and you just got to do what makes you happy. And as people who've like are on the channel and subscribed and everything, they know obviously that I do artwork. That's a very calming thing, especially by yourself, and quietness, solitude. And I do a lot of writing, which Webb does as well, and that's helped out in the past too. Is writing stuff I was going through. Writing has helped out in many ways. What about you, Webb?
Well, you're 100% right when it comes to the writing element of stuff. For depression, in dealing with my depression, there was nothing that was really super helpful about it, in the sense of like, there's no easy way out for that. My depression started getting worse to the point of becoming unmanageable around the time of, I would say, around 2012, because that was around the time that my father had been diagnosed with lung cancer. The battle with depression I had from around 2006 to 2009, I tried to fight that with, I guess as much as I could, I tried to fight it with writing. Because I realized that I have a writing degree that I wasn't using, and I felt the need to try to exercise that somehow. And I also lost myself in a lot of books and comics, and that kind of helped. The thing is, when it comes to depression like that, there's different ways that people try to get by, and one of them is by trying to engage in the familiar. For example, some people might return to a comfort show, or a comfort book, or something that they're familiar with, because that familiarity, there's no surprises that you have to deal with. There's no sense of like having to embrace something new and put that energy into it. You already know what to expect. and it makes things a lot easier when you're doing that. However, that is not a treatment. That is just I guess you could say, an adaptation to something. You're trying to adapt, but you're not doing it in a way that is helping. You're just kind of like soothing it. It's like you're taking a pain reliever instead of treating the actual problem. Does the pain relief help? Of course it does. It helps you get through. But does it actually treat the problem? It does not. So you have to try to find that balance of finding something familiar to help you deal with what you're experiencing, but you also have to try to find something that helps push you through. And for me, that's where writing was helpful in that. I would eventually change my job and start working at another location, which really helped when I started working at a hotel. And that change from the kind of politics, like office politics I was dealing with, along with some backstabbing that was going on, it helped for a while, that change in location.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was bad. But then the toxic environment of that place started to get to me. And I started getting really, really, really depressed again. And that's where I had to start seeing a therapist, which was a huge help. I've been in therapy and dealing with talking with a therapist since around 2013, so it's been about 8 years. And that's very helpful. It's not something that I would ever want to give up on. Because when something is working, mental health is something that you need to continuously take care of. It's not something that you can just, when you're feeling sick, you take like an antibiotic or something. It's not like that. Mental health is a continual battle. And that's not a bad thing that it can't be treated like that. It's just one of those things that you have to stay on top of. And that has helped out a lot too. And then to help push that along even further, in 2016, when I started my own YouTube channel and started creating, that really helped. Knowing that I was creating something and putting it out onto the world, and that was going to be there, made it feel like life had more of a point, I guess you could say. I'm going to make a really weird comparison here, Stefan, and this is going to seem really weird, but try to follow me on this.
All right.
Okay. So, I've often been asked when I play Let's Plays and stream video games, people tell me that I should go and play the Pokemon games, the original ones, for the Game Boy, and just do an emulator run with them.
I am terrified where this is getting. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
They asked me if I would ever play those games, and I love the Pokemon games. But the thing is, they have things these days, and how they've set it up, Nintendo, to where if you play the Pokemon games on the 3DS, they have the ROMs you can download and play. You can then take the Pokemon that you raised in that game and transport them to other games so you can play with those same Pokemon in other games. So you can transport like the Bulbasaur that you've raised into a Venusaur, and you can take it from your 3DS Pokemon Red and then put it into a Pokemon box for Ultra Sun and Moon, and then move it from Sun and Moon into Pokemon Sword and Shield. So all that effort that you put in there carries on in some way, shape, or form. It wasn't all just confined to that one game. You can now carry it on, and it wasn't just limited to the context there. Where if you play it on an emulator, it is all limited to the context there. You can't move that Pokemon from the emulated version to something else. It's confined to that space, and that's it. And when you create something, like through writing, or through a YouTube video or something, it's now, when you put it out there into the public, it's not just existing within you anymore. It's out there and it's moved on to a larger space where it can now grow on its own, so to say, to take on its own life and be used elsewhere or to have an impact. Other people can now listen to it, they can interact with it, they can view it, they can respond to it. So it's not just confined to that one space anymore. And that's how I kind of envision, or when I think of creating things, I almost feel like, it's like playing Pokemon in that sense, where if you're playing it a certain way, then you can have it carry on to just beyond the bounds of that game. Does that make any sense?
No, that makes perfect sense, actually. Another example would be like if I drew something really cool and then I put it out there and somebody went and did the same thing, but a parody of it with another character. Something that carries on that feels gratifying.
Yeah, it really does feel gratifying, and it's such a weird way to describe it like that, but it's true. Like I could write something for myself and diary and try to get those things out there, or even like better like this, I could sit down and watch a movie and then do nothing with it, and just like, oh well, that film is now it's part of my lexicon in terms of the films I've watched. But if I write a review of that film, now other people have seen it too and can interact with that review, and that knowledge that it has extended beyond myself, that creation process fills my life with something, and that helps fight off and has helped fight off depression for me.
Oh, well, that's good because that's genuinely the next question: is has it worked for you? And you're saying it has, and that's a good thing. That means it's a positive thing in your life that now exists, and you know, I'm glad because I also feel the same way when I write or draw or put out content here on the channel. The only personal thing, I guess, in growth wise that I couldn't share with anyone else, and I've already talked about this before, in suppressing my depression and anxiety is feeling healthier and going to the gym and exercising, which we have talked about here before. And again, I'm not going to preach, but it has worked. Feeling more limber and not like you're, a pancake or a fried egg on the couch. You start to feel better and things become less stressful when you exercise. Like if I went to a day job and I worked 8 hours on my feet, that would feel way less stressful if I was going to the gym 4 times a week than somebody who just goes home and sits down. They're going to be used to sitting down and they're going to hate standing up for 8 hours, etc., etc. So even getting up off the couch, lifting things, I mean, just name it, driving, anything, after working out, everything else seems less and less stressful on your body, and then in that way also on your mind. Another thing that helped, that's worked for me is, and this goes hand in hand with exercising, is I have now not smoked a cigarette in over 6 weeks now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is huge.
Yeah. And I feel just so, it's the best thing I ever did. I'm so happy I quit smoking. That, and I would just get a couple drinks, go over a friend's house and drink, maybe every Saturday night or something, and we'd hang out, play video games, whatever. And I have also not, I went to Vegas for a couple days, and I had 2 drinks there, but other than that, I have not had any alcohol in that same amount of time, 6 weeks.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
I feel amazing, and my body's like, good on you. So, my advice is, if you have any advices, you may want to consider getting rid of them because they're not worth it and they're not good for you. But moving along, that's just, again, I'm trying not to preach, but question number 4 is here. What do you do now, just in general, to help you work through it? We've kind of already covered that, so I'm just going to move on to question 5. Do you have any other symptoms now after having experienced depression for the first time?
For me, it's not so much symptoms of depression that have come through. I've done a very good job at fighting the depression. The anxiety, on the other hand, that's been the problem. Depression, I know for a lot of people, this is something that that did happen to me with depression. I became very tired all the time, to where even with enough sleep, it just wasn't going on. And let's say I had free time. Instead of being able to enjoy that free time, and this is what happened with work, especially when I was in a terrible job, I could be on my days off and think to myself how wretched it would be that I would have to... I couldn't enjoy my days off because I just kept thinking to myself, well, yeah, I had this day off, but I got to go back to work in 2 days, so great. So I couldn't even enjoy my days off. And then when I had decisions that I could make, of like, well, what can I read today, or what can I write today, or what game can I play? I would just, like, look at everything, and I couldn't make a choice because it just felt like it was too much energy to pick something.
Oh man, I've been there a lot of times, Webb. That's interesting that you say that. I've been there.
It's a really weird thing to have all these possibilities. Or, like, even if there was a game, like, let's say there was a game I was playing that was like an open world game, like Grand Theft Auto or something. I would think to myself, there's too many choices. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to play this. Or,
Right.
or like, there was this thought of, like, well, I'm going to have to learn the controls. I'm going to have to sit through the tutorial. I don't want to expend this energy. And it was so hard to try to get anything going like that. And the thing that kind of helped at times was realizing that if I did start to expend the energy, like, after I started, things would get easier to do. Like, all I needed to do was start something. And if I started it, then it's like I was getting through that initial inertia, so to say. And it became easier to do things once I started. But since then, in terms of depression symptoms, not really anything of that nature for depression, except for the fatigue. Fatigue was a big one. But with anxiety, that stuff has been more like, anxiety can do really fucked up things to you. Like, really, really strange, fucked up things. Like, I've had occasions where my body would just start tingling, like, all over. Or my body would start vibrating. Like, I would be laying down, and I would feel like a truck was driving by my house because my entire body would start vibrating. And I thought to myself, well, maybe, like, the washer and dryer machine in the, like, place below me was going on. And so one time when I felt it, I went downstairs to see if the washing machine was on. It wasn't. My body was just vibrating out of sheer anxiety. And then there would be times where I would wake up after, like, having a nap or after sleeping, and when I would wake up, my entire body would be shaking and trembling. Just really weird stuff like that. Anxiety can do so much to you that it's scary what your body will have happen when it's running on high alert like that.
Yeah, I agree. You know, other symptoms, like I said, going from depression to anxiety is one of those things. Another thing that would weirdly happen is, it was very odd, is when I would feel like anxiety, extreme anxiety, is I couldn't hear any loud noises, especially in my left ear. And if I did, I would, like, my mind would lose it. It couldn't focus, and then it would just get worse and worse until, like, my ears started hurting and my brain wouldn't function. Like, my body would want to shut down almost, but it was like it was being pumped up with energy that it didn't know where it was coming from. It's just a weird sensation of your heart going crazy, and, you know, like you're having a heart attack basically, or you're gonna hyperventilate. So that's been one of the weird, like, symptoms, and I'm gonna say part of that is also getting old. I just can't rock out the way I used to. But yeah, that started happening, and it still today happens sometimes. And when I'm drawing here, or writing or whatever, and I'm playing music on my laptop, I sometimes have to turn it down, or I have to plug in headphones and listen to it softly, because whatever reason, just hearing, like, loud noises booming at me, it won't work anymore, and it gives me bad anxiety, and then that is coupled with depression. So, question number 6 here is, if there was anything new you experienced, any new challenges, what did you do to tackle those?
Ooh.
I think, yeah.
I mean, that's a big one. In terms of challenging things, that was straight up having to see a therapist. Straight up, I just could not handle those changes, because I'm not a person who reacts well to changes anyway. So I straight up had to find a therapist. That was, like, a big thing. And then there were times where things would change, and I'd have to see my therapist again and be like, I'm freaking out here, we need to talk. And what helped me beyond that was finding other people who experienced similar things. Like, for instance, one of the big people who's been so helpful to me has been a similarly named friend to you, Stefan, named Stephen. Stephen's my co-host for the Fraser Analysis. And Stephen has been able to help talk me through some really bad anxiety stuff, because he deals with anxiety as well. And like he's told me about different things that he's read about and studied up on that have really helped me in terms of being able to like kind of tone down the body's response to it, and try to work through it. And knowing that the struggles are not just my own kind of somehow helps cope better with it, because you understand that this is not something that you are struggling with by yourself. This is something that does not exist in a vacuum. Other people are dealing with it as well, and you don't have to feel alone in it.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. When I was on a plane, because I hadn't flown in years, like 15 years, but I got on a plane, like, I want to say last year, and it was 45 minutes from Phoenix to LAX, 45 minutes. I was freaking out because I'm afraid of heights. And, like, the one thing that helped me cope was, like you're saying, I just started looking around at everyone else in the plane, and the rows of people, and everyone's calm, and I'm sitting here freaking out. I almost like canceled the flight. I was like, I can't do it. I was freaking out that bad. And when I was looking at people, I was like, look at everyone. Nobody cares. Everyone's fine. Nothing is wrong. Look how everyone's so calm. Like, people are on their headphones, rocking out, chilling, and other people are sleeping, And you're right. When you realize that, it helps a ton. It really does.
But, for some people, that can make, and this is why things are different for everybody. Some people can look at that and see other people acting so normal, and then start thinking to themselves, how come they can be normal and I can't? And then it can start to wear on you, depending on the type of person you are, if that's the case. Like, I had, for instance, a coworker, or somebody who I used to work with, they passed away. And other people who were in that group who knew her were not taking it nearly as badly as I was. I was really emotionally distraught. And I just started thinking to myself, what's wrong with me that I can't process and cope the way they are doing? So how come I'm the one who's struggling trying to just return back to work and get past this? Well, they can't. And it's important to realize that with that is that everybody processes things in their own way. And if you are letting yourself feel those things, it's good to let yourself feel those things in a healthy way, as long as the things that are causing you to feel that way, the negative parts, are taken care of. For example, if I didn't talk to my therapist about it, or if I didn't try to, I shared with you some of the poetry I wrote about how I was feeling when that happened.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing those things, if I wasn't trying to cope that way, and was just letting it all sit in my head, that would have been bad. But because I was trying to exercise those feelings in different ways, either through writing or through therapy, I was able to push through it and understand that, okay, my feelings may be more intense than other people's, but I can't let that get me down. I just have to push forward and understand that this is not a bad thing because I'm treating it. If I wasn't treating it, it would be a bad thing to be feeling this heavily down. But again, that's why, for some people, you might feel comfort around other people who are feeling normal about something. It can help you feel like, okay, well, if they're feeling normal about it, I can do this too. But then sometimes if it's the opposite, you can have that feeling too, in the sense of why am I the only one who's like this? What's wrong with me? And it really happens. It depends on how you internalize those emotions, which is why some people work best in the form of a support group, where you are surrounded by people who are struggling like yourself, because it helps you identify the fact that you're not struggling alone.
Right.
There's no one catch-all for this stuff, but it's exactly why you're doing this interview series, because people can try different things for what works for them in overcoming depression.
Right. There's not going to be one simple answer. It's always the same. There's no one pill that's going to cure this or that. There's never going to be an easy answer, and not everything's going to work for everyone. It's good that you mentioned that, Webb, because we should clarify that. But listening to this, and I hope people do, and you share it and everything, because the whole point of it was specifically that, to let other people know that they're not the only ones going through this, that other people are, and then when other people share, like maybe something that's worked for them is something that, you, the listener, haven't tried before. Obviously we've we've gone through years of it that, I think you've already kind of found your answer to what kind of quells it for you, Webb, and I have myself. But as you said also before, it's never a thing that's going to go away. Your mental health is with you your whole life. And, you have to work on it daily. Sadness and happiness are never going to be a constant thing. They're fleeting feelings that you have to constantly either chase after happiness or try to avoid sadness. That's just the way it is. That's the way life is. And it's not, nobody should feel despair because of that or disparaged. It's a great thing. That's part of life. But yeah, you're right about all of that. And it's a good thing we kind of clarified that too, because question 7 that we're going to be asking our guests on here and we're going to be answering right now is, what is the worst episode you've ever suffered through? And I can go first if you want, or you can, Webb. It doesn't matter.
You can go first.
Okay. So, the worst episode there's 2 actually that I would put on the same level, same bar. One was more physical and one was more emotional. The emotional one was when I was 22, 23. The girl I was with, and the relationship was a bit toxic, but we were very much in love, and I was going to marry her. And in my mind, that was it. This is the one. That's it. I don't have to worry about it. I'm done. I got it all figured out. And a month before I was going to propose to her, she left. Like literally, we're sitting down doing something, and she says, "You know what? Fuck this. I'm leaving." And she just got up, packed everything, and left. Like right in the middle of something, of just nothing. We weren't even arguing or anything. And that it killed me because and I had been with her for years, and here I was now alone in this apartment, and I had no friends. I had nothing. My family, I hadn't talked to my mom and dad really that much at all, and all I kind of really had was my grandparents. And so it hit me really hard. I immediately turned towards drinking heavily. And of course, that in turn would have me smoking a lot. And, I wanted to kill myself. And I did attempt to try and commit suicide. And the thing is that, alcohol and a bunch of pills, you can kill yourself that way. That's what I did. And the only thing that saved me, and the reason I'm actually here today, is I didn't want to leave my sister without saying goodbye to her and let her know, I loved her and it wasn't her fault and everything. And it's probably like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I called her and she didn't answer. And I left her a message so that she would know. And this is like, I can only imagine how that message sounded when I had downed a bunch of pills and I'd had so much alcohol in me. And she knew where I lived. So she woke up, saw the message, listened to it, and called the 911. So while I'm sitting there and I'm literally like, my mind's gone, I'm waiting to die. I'm laying there waiting to die. And I'm thinking about, the girl that I was going to marry. And, suddenly, of course, I'm surrounded by paramedics and they're asking what I took. And, I went through the whole thing. But that was probably one of the worst episodes ever that I emotionally suffered through. And every time since then, I think, man, like I have never felt that low since. And I'm so happy that I haven't. The physical worst episode was actually recently. It was like last year, at the beginning of last year before the pandemic. I was drinking a lot and smoking a lot, and my body had finally had enough. And I couldn't go to the gym because everything was closed down, or was going to be closed down, and I was worried. Everyone was worried about COVID. So I'm just sitting here like every day when I'm not working, drinking and smoking. And it got to the point where I literally woke up one day and I couldn't breathe. And I could not catch air to save my life. And I kept trying. I'm like, it's trying to suck in air, and it's like, it will not happen. So of course I'm freaking out. I'm hyperventilating. And one of the things when you hyperventilate is your fingers start to curve back. And that started to happen. And my chest was palpitating so hard that I thought I was having a heart attack. So all this is going on. And I feel like utter trash, of course, because I'm hungover. And the paramedics came and they did the whole thing on your heart. And they're like, it looks fine. And as far as we can tell, it doesn't look like you're having a heart attack. I'm like, it feels like it. So it took about, I'm going to say, 8 hours of hell of me just feeling awful, just awful, before I finally came down to some quaint form of normalcy and got back into the rhythm of feeling alive. But yeah, so that hit me pretty hard, and that was just last year. But that's part of the reason why now, when people hear me talk about exercising and quitting smoking and drinking, I honestly think that weighed heavily into how bad my body felt because of years of that, of abuse. And I wasn't even drinking a lot, but years of it, I think it finally caught up to me, and my body just can't do it anymore. And I'm glad, because it's something I should have done a long time ago. But yeah, those are my worst episodes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, there was a period of time, I would say about maybe 2.5 years ago, where the problems with my ear ringing, the tinnitus, and some of the distortions that I hear in sound had me in such a fit I couldn't sleep. I was so low on sleep, and everything was just building up in my head to where I started to seriously consider, is it worth it to continue living this way? And I called a anxiety hotline for when a crisis hotline, basically, and they asked me if I needed somebody dispatched out to me. I said no, I didn't. But I ended up talking to them and just trying to calm down. And ultimately, I found one of the things that helped get me through it was after talking to somebody, my body felt so emotionally tired, I guess, finally, that the emotional tiredness and the physical tiredness kind of combined to help me actually fall asleep. And it's amazing how much better and clearly you can think and more healthily you can think when you've been able to sleep. So even getting sleep can sometimes be a huge thing to take you down from where you are. And that's what I needed there. That was the probably the most emotionally difficult I got, was just at that point in time. And again, the combination of talking to another human being and sleep really helped me. Mind you, I've had other moments that were emotionally really bad, like when I found out that my mom was dying from cancer. I started to have a breakdown, and I just cried for hours. But after that, that was the only time I really cried over it. I let it all out then and there, and then somehow I just kind of accepted what was happening. It was tough. But those were emotional, low points. As for the physical one, this was scary. Sometimes, once you start having anxiety problems or depression problems, it feels like your threshold for what you can tolerate is decreased. For example, whereas before you might be able to take, I don't know, compare it to a video game. Let's say you could take 100 HP worth of damage before you die. And then you get hit really hard with that, status effect of, depression or anxiety. And all of a sudden your hit points are reduced from 100 to 80. And it feels like you can just tolerate less before you hit this crisis point. Or another way to look at it is, let's say the indicator for when you're in danger zone of health goes from 10 HP to 20 HP. Now when you're in 20 HP, you're in the danger zone now. The threshold changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that one of the things that I have a threshold that's lower for now is heat. I cannot take the heat very well at all. And one time I was driving back from my mechanic's. I had driven out to my mechanic. My mechanic lives a ways away from me. So I had the car towed out there and I was driving back. And the heat that day was really bad. And even with the air conditioner, I just felt terrible. I was tired, I was hot, and it just was not going well. And so I'm driving down, and I start to feel the symptoms of a vasovagal response coming on. I'm feeling my hands start to get tingly, my feet getting tingly, and I'm on the road when this is happening, which is dangerous. So I find a way to get off the road, and fortunately, I last long enough to where there's a gas station. And I start to feel my vision, like I feel like my vision's starting to go. Because that's the other thing that happens with vasovagal syncope, is that the functions in your head start to get messed up, whether it's the, you want to faint, so your vision starts to start blinking out on you. And I get to the gas station, and I park the car, and I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I need to get out of the car or what's going to happen. But this is the other kind of weird thing when this happens, and your body builds up this much. With vasovagal syncope, you also have the potential to vomit, or sometimes you can lose control of your bowels. And obviously the symptoms can change for other people, but I felt like if I didn't do something, I was going to defecate myself. So I had to get to the restroom in there, and I kind of stumble in. And I get to the restroom, and I've got, I'm sitting down, I reach for the garbage can, and I have it posed, over, I have it so I can vomit into if I need to. But at that point in time, it was really bad. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I just thought, I think I need to get some hydration. I mean, maybe part of this is happening because of the heat. I've been sweating too much. And I start crying out for help. And just like, help, help, help. And some guy comes to me, say, are you okay? Like one of the store personnel. And I didn't know. He's like, what do you need? What can I do? And because of the way that it's hard to talk and think when you're in that kind of a state, and I want to tell him that I need something cold to drink. I just need something to hydrate. I'm having a vasovagal syncope, but I can't form those words because of everything that happens. So I just go, diabetes. It's just like sugar. He comes back with the Mountain Dew, which is great because it was helpful, but it was just like, well, you can't get all those words out. So diabetes. And
oh man, that's like leading up to that with the bowels and everything. I was gonna say, man, that's like everyone after eating some Taco Bell. But yeah, diabetes, that'll work. Good idea,
Yep.
Webb.
Yeah, I just got the word out. It was just like one word. I said diabetes, and it's like low blood sugar, and so he got me something to drink, which was good.
That's awesome. What's is it just? Would you say that, like, if you came to Arizona and it was 120 out, that wouldn't help?
No, I would probably be going into like a really bad state. Like it would not be good for me.
Okay, no, that's good because I'm the same way. I surrender. I can't be in hot heat either, and I do live in Phoenix. But if anyone ever comes in my apartment, they will notice right now that my air is at 40 degrees. I'm not even kidding. I have to be in cold weather as well.
I have to be too. That's why my air conditioner is on, and my window's open during the winter to let in that cold air, especially when I'm sleeping.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the other thing that happens a lot. Any kind of symptoms I have of anxiety or depression get worse when I'm trying to sleep because I'm alone with my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And the heat only makes it worse because it makes it harder to sleep. So I need a cold bedroom to sleep in. Very cold.
Yeah, absolutely. I sleep, not to like be too TMI here, but I usually sleep in just my boxers. And my roommate, when she comes out, because the vent literally just shoots right where I'm sleeping. And she's like, "You're not cold?" I'm like, "God, no, this is amazing."
Yes. I know the feeling.
Yeah, anything hotter, and I would be in hell. So, and it sucks too, because her family came and stayed with us once, and they kept, because they're not used to it, and they kept turning off the air. and I was sleeping in her room, and her room is 20 degrees hotter than where my room is for some reason. And so they turned it off, and I literally woke up, and I'm like, why? What is going on? I'm dying. Like, I'm literally dying. So I got up and turned it back on, and I told them later, I'm like, you guys can't do that. Like, I'm sorry. I have to be in cold weather. But that's interesting. And I'm curious if it's because, like, is it like part of when you have anxiety or something that, like, your body heats up?
It could be. Generally, when you have anxiety, your body is functioning on overdrive, and metabolic processes generally require energy to perform, so your body starts to heat up. Yeah, I mean, that could easily be tied to it. Sometimes people are just more sensitive to things. I know that people, for instance, that suffer from multiple sclerosis have increased heat sensitivity, and multiple sclerosis is a disease of the nervous system. So maybe there's something about the nervous system in general that functions better when things are cooler because it's not overheating the body. Like, that's kind of an example of like when you have people who suffer heart attacks when it's they're shoveling snow. Because of the cold weather, they don't realize like their body isn't overheating as much, so they tend to work more, and they don't feel like the sweat build up and all that stuff to where it feels as exhausting. And they end up overburdening themselves and having a heart attack. So maybe there is something to that medically about the body kind of functions better in the cold, so to say. At least, moderate cold. But I don't know if there's science behind that or not, or if I'm just like spitballing anecdotally.
I think there has to be. There's something there. Because, and I've always told people, you can, living in Phoenix, it's like you can keep yourself warm in cold weather, but you can't keep yourself cold in hot weather.
Yes, that's what I say all the time too. It's much easier to help heat your body up than it is to cool your body down. You can always dress in layers. You can do something to help keep your body heat warm, assuming you have access to these things. But there's literally only so much you can do to try to keep your body cool. There's no other way to avoid it.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect of our bodies. So that's good. I'm glad we got that out of the way, and it's question number 7. It kind of leads up to it for people still listening. I think that's the hardest question to answer. And the question after it, number 8, is what advice can you give others about depression or other experiences linked to it? And for me, Webb, the best advice I can give is, try different things.
Yeah.
I always advocate, what you put in your body, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, or even just eating bad food, you should always do it moderately, because, what you put in your body is how you're going to feel. I know there's been times, which is why I've sworn off McDonald's, is when I eat McDonald's, I literally feel like shit for 2 hours, and I can't eat it anymore. I just don't know what it is about McDonald's specifically, but it's like the worst, and I can't eat it. So those 3 things. I actually did go to therapy too when I was younger, in my early 20s. That helped out at that time, and generally being around positive atmosphere. Getting a lot of sleep, having good friends who aren't going to stress you out and, be problems all the time, or who listen to you when you're suffering, things like that, I would advocate for, and I think are valuable commodities when dealing with depression or anxiety in general. What do you think, Webb?
3 pieces of advice I would give. 1, if you're not getting enough sleep, get enough sleep. And if you're sleeping too much, do something else in terms of finding a way to put your energy out into something. And tying along with that, number 2, if you feel like you can't do anything, push yourself to at least start something. Because more often than not, once you start something, it becomes easier to continue it. But you need to get over that initial hump, so to say, to get the thing started. And then once you do that, you'll find that you can continue it a lot easier. Like, if there's that book on the shelf that you always mean to start reading, but you never feel like you have the energy to do it, start reading it. Once you start, continuing is a lot easier. There's always like this initial amount of energy that is a greater expenditure than continuing to do it. And then number 3, I would say find, if it works for you, try to find a therapist and understand that the therapist may not be right for you, and it's okay if that's the case. You need to find the right therapist for you, and that can take a couple tries. And remember that if you do see a therapist and you want it to work, you don't go to a therapist for comfort. You go there for healing. A therapist is not supposed to be there to provide you a sense of warmth and comfort. They're supposed to challenge you to push yourself to find solutions to heal. They can help you through that in a way that is warm and caring, but they are not there to make you feel comfortable. A good therapist will push you, and therapy itself can and should be emotionally taxing to a degree. That's not to say that your therapist should be like emotionally abusing you or something, but they should be trying to push you to better yourself, and that takes work. It's like surgery. It hurts, but it heals. And the same thing can happen with therapy as well. You need to find the person who's going to push you to improve upon yourself, but do so in a way that is not confrontational, but again, just challenging and respectful. And if you can find that, then you're going to be good. Or at least you have a better chance at being good.
Yeah, like more formatted to your comfortability level, I would say.
Like, I once had a doctor who was just kind of a prick, and he wouldn't listen to me, and every time I went to see him, my blood pressure would increase because I just did not like him. Was he an effective, was he a good doctor who knew what he was, like, talking about scientifically? Yes, but was he a caring, like, decent person to go to? No. He was a terrible person to go to. Hated him. Got a better doctor? Got better.
That's good. He does not sound like a Dr. Nick.
No, he was not a Dr. Nick.
Anyone Simpsons fans. But
Hi, Doctor. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick.
Instead, if you're looking to gain weight, instead of bread for sandwich, use Pop-Tart.
I like the food saying that Krusty always does. He's like, if you can find a greasier burger, you're in Mexico. You're probably in Mexico. Question number 9. How happy are you now?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
It is.
Happiness is ever changing. You can be happy one day and then not happy another. And that's okay. What I try to do to assess my happiness is not try to assess it as a whole, because that can be tough. You have to try to just find happiness in moments. Like, did you read a good book today? Did you read a good part of a book? Did you make something happen at work today that you were proud of? Did you watch a good TV show? Something like that. Small things. Find the happiness in the small things like that, because even if your life as a whole isn't happy, but you can find small things along the way, it helps. If that's how you measure things by, it can be really good. Obviously, we have to spend time looking towards the future and planning for the future. But if you focus on that too much and you miss out on the day-to-day things, you are effectively reducing the amount of happiness you can have in your life if you're focused too much on that. But then if you're focused too much on the present and the here and now, you can screw your future over. So you have to be able to keep one eye towards the future, but not be afraid to look at the here and now and be like, what can I do to make this day, this moment, happier for me? And find some of those things, the healthy things, and do them. Like if you have money that you're saved up and you can afford to buy yourself a quick game on the PlayStation Network or something, buy it. Just go ahead and buy it. If it's something small, you can afford it, and will make you feel happy then and there, do it. Don't do something that will make life more difficult down the road. But if it means indulging once in a while on a coconut cream pie, or if it means buying that game that you wanted to buy, do it. Just do it and enjoy it. And as long as you can do that but still maintain your sights on something for the future, That's how I try to go about things lately more, is embracing the moment to moment and trying to hold on to those while still trying to plan for the future, making positive decisions. Like if I have extra money, you know what? Pay off part of that debt from a credit card or something. Throw some money at it. Make life a bit easier that way for the future. And then take a small portion and order that hamburger from the local restaurant. That's a big, juicy half-pound burger with the mushrooms and the mozzarella cheese and the scallions. Oh my God, it's good. Enjoy it.
I'm gonna go get coconut cream pie right now. I don't know about you.
There you go.
Yeah, but no, I would say the same thing, and deduce the fact that it's always going to be a balancing act. You're not always gonna, it's like I said earlier, it's happiness and sadness are both temporary feelings. And there's no reason you should want to feel suicidal even, because that is not temporary. So, just balance. That's what I say. And, I'm happy half and half right now because obviously the way the world is with COVID, how divided the country is, the bigger things, and, just artistically, I have to keep growing and I'm not happy where I'm at yet, but I'll get there. And it's just a balancing act of trying to, find yourself eating good, going to exercise, being around positive settings, and so on and so forth. I'm a very extremely positive person, and Webb knows this. I'm extremely positive, but being extremely positive does not necessarily equate to happiness. So, I try to do the best I can, and when it comes to how happy I am right now, again, I just balance. I try and balance as much as possible. I do stuff that, it's like, I really don't want to do this, but I have to get it out of the way. And then like Webb says, I kind of treat myself on the other hand, whether it's eating Taco Bell once a week or buying that game on PS Now. So that's my advice of being happy, is balance every single thing and be suspect and weary of things that might try to take that away from you. But as of how happy I am right now, I am right in the middle of it, of the struggle that we all deal with. But I think overall, I'm pretty good right now.
I think of things like with our channel, for example. This is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Am I happy with how our channel is progressing in terms of viewership? No, I wish we had more. Am I happy at this moment recording something with you and knowing we're going to put it out there? Very. I'm very happy with that. And that's, again, the difference between looking at what you have versus what you would like to have in the future. I'm not happy with how that's going. I want more for us because I feel like, objectively, I feel we deserve more based off the work that we're putting in. But am I happy with what we have in the sense of I feel good recording this, I feel good spending time with you, I know that somebody's going to listen to this, one of our few viewers who tunes in regularly, and they're going to hopefully embrace this. Yeah, that makes me feel happy. That makes me feel great. So, again, balancing act between that, but in general, yeah, I do feel, at this moment, I feel very happy.
Same, absolutely. And that brings up the thing, and we don't say it often, but subscribing and sharing the show, and obviously this is something that could easily be shared, does go a long way to helping the channel, because we do want to keep doing this. I don't think, if we don't grow, we have to start to question, like, what can we change? What can we do? Or are we even doing enough? I feel like we are, but it's definitely, like you said, Bob, it's not growing as fast as it could. So definitely, if anyone's listening, share the word, and so on and so forth. The last question on here is just an open discussion, and I think we kind of covered everything. Generally, the open discussion is for, a guest we might have on here that would want to say more that they feel they didn't get to during the process of the original questionnaire. But the only thing I would add is that for a long time, because I haven't in over a decade now, for a couple of years I took prescription medication, and I have a sister who also does as well, and she's still taking it, and it took her, I want to say, at least 5 to 6 different meds to try and find the one that's like working for her. And sure enough, there's been side effects for people. When I took Zoloft, it actually changed my body in a way I didn't like. My muscles started to feel droopy, and I started to gain weight a lot. So it didn't work for me. I would advocate people, test out something. If it doesn't work for you, then, if you start to suffer from severe to moderate plaque psoriasis, no, I'm just kidding. But, just try out what works for you. If you feel like something's not working, don't stick with it. Do something else. I mean, obviously follow your doctor's guidelines because we're not doctors, but you know what I'm getting at. Use your best judgment. For me, I also took Klonopin, and that made me feel like a goddamn zombie for a very long time. I mean, people would talk to me and I would just sit there and not say anything because I just felt like so zonked out on, how much they were giving me. And he wanted me to take it 3 times a day. And I could barely take one and not feel like a freaking robot. So, use your best judgment. But for me, I have not taken medication for my depression or anxiety. I've worked through it simply organically. And I would advocate, but if you do feel the need to, obviously speak with your doctor, get the best advice you can. If something's not working for you, that's okay. My sister, like I said, has gone through many different ones, and she's on one now that she thinks is working. So that would be my ending advice for the open discussion.
And I would just tag on to that by stating, if you have the opportunity to see a therapist, I personally would recommend starting off with one who cannot prescribe medications. If you're not in a point where you feel like self-harm or something is that drastic. So if you're just feeling like, you want to try some solutions, but you don't feel like self-harm or suicide is going to be something that you're worried about doing, start off by seeing somebody who can't prescribe medications. See if your situation can be resolved without meds. Because a lot of psychotropic medications have powerful side effects, some of which can make your feelings worse. So see if just talking and therapy is enough for you. If it's not helping, then your therapist may recommend, or you might feel like you should see somebody who can prescribe medication. But I will always be an advocate for trying to resolve things first and foremost with therapy before meds, as long as you're not in danger. If you feel like you're putting yourself in danger, then maybe you should skip to one of the more heavy medications or a heavier methods, because your brain chemistry might need some serious help. But again, not speaking as a doctor, but speaking from my own personal experience, I am grateful I went the therapy route because I don't necessarily need medication. There's been times where things were bad enough to where, yes, I needed that extra help with medication. But in general, I don't need it. And I'm glad that I went to somebody who can't prescribe it, because it let us go through other options first before turning to medication. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and the therapist I went to, what he would do is actually just give me meds and be like, "So how you been feeling? All right, good. Well, see you next time."
Yeah, that's not good.
I should have went to somebody, and that was the dude that was telling me to take, God, I don't know how, it was like an obscene amount of milligrams of Klonopin. He's like, take this 3 times a day and you'll feel right at home. And I felt like I could have gotten addicted to those if I hadn't stopped right at the beginning. So yeah, that's the best advice. And something I know I'm going to try to mention and make a note of it on every episode is, if you are feeling suicidal, there's always going to be a suicide hotline to turn to, and there's nothing to be ashamed about of calling it. So if you are, please contact your local suicide hotline. And otherwise, keep listening to the show, spread it, and everything else. We're going to have other people on that are going to talk about their experiences and so on and so forth. So, yeah, thanks for everyone listening. You got anything else to say, Webb?
I don't. Just thank you for starting this and having me on to talk about things. And I hope that it provides an avenue for other people to discuss their battles and tribulations and successes as well.
Yeah, definitely. And leave any comments below that you think might help other people, or, or just what you think we could do to add to the show. But thanks for everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time on Crypt of the Unknown.